And so I think it was just a really good year of coming to understand, that the Lord cared about me and loved me. And it was crazy that I, was walking with him but didn't really know that before.
Welcome to this week's episode of the His Hill Podcast. My name is Kelly Doherty, and I'm your host. I have with us today the newest member of staff, who is not really new around here. She's been a student, and now she's back. She's head of housekeeping, and this is Savanna Cooper. Now, Savanna, first of all, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
The second thing is I called it head of housekeeping, and that tells everybody how old I am, because that's what we called it 40 years ago. What's your title actually now?
Officially, my title is hospitality manager.
Okay.
But it does get confusing because it's kind of, people call it all different things, and I don't mind. Yeah.
Okay, and you don't mind?
No,
that's
it's okay.
Great.
I say head of housekeeping all the time.
Okay, all right. So how long have you actually been on staff?
I came on staff in the beginning of January, and then I took over officially head of housekeeping or hospitality manager in March.
Okay, yeah. And so now, first you were here for training, and now you're doing this, your head all by yourself. How's that going?
It's going really well. It's definitely been a learning curve, and I was so thankful to have Rachel for the first couple of months. That really helped me understand everything, but I really, really enjoy it. Yeah, it's definitely can feel like a lot, but I really enjoy how fast-paced everything is and how much there is to do. Yeah.
Just so people understand, this is a really big job. There's have you ever counted how many buildings there are on property?
No.
No?
I haven't done that.
It would take a while to count this, and they're spread all over almost 200 acres. So, and then we're in the gym, upstairs in the gym right now, and this thing's huge. Just everything that you have to take care of and to oversee to me is quite daunting. It's a very big deal. So I appreciate you being here and being willing to do that. Let's find out some things about you. Why don't you tell us, first of all, where were you born? Where did you grow up? What kind of family do you come from?
Yeah. So I was born in Michigan, very close to the Great Lakes. And I lived there until I was 9, and then we moved to Missouri. I was homeschooled my whole life, and I'm number 7 out of 12 kids. And so, I grew up around a lot of siblings, around a lot of cousins, and it would probably to most people would be considered very loud, maybe intimidating family life, but to me it was just very normal.
Okay.
Holidays were just more than, 100 people with all of the aunts and uncles and cousins. And, my family alone now, there's a lot of in-laws with my siblings getting married. And my a niece was just born on Wednesday, and that would make it 9 grandchildren for my family. So that's super exciting. I was homeschooled my whole life. And so we were at home a lot. And then when I was about 8, my dad started traveling for work, and he would travel all over the United States. And so we started traveling with him so that we weren't separated for so long. And so, I got to travel to a lot of different states. We stayed in a lot of hotels, did school on the road.
Wow.
And so, that was probably until my early teens. We would be on the road for weeks at a time or months at a time in the winter time. So,
wow. So you got out of Michigan during the winter.
Yeah, quite a bit. We moved to Missouri soon after he started his company.
Okay.
So, but it was still cold. So a lot of times we got to spend winters in Florida or South Carolina. So that was really nice.
Wow. So how old were you when you moved to Missouri?
I was 9 when we moved to Missouri. Yeah.
So tell us about your family a little bit more. Is it a Christian family?
Yes. So both my parents are strong believers. My dad was raised Catholic. And he came to know the Lord when he was 14. He was the first in his family. He's the youngest of 8. And so it was a pretty big deal when he left the Catholic Church.
You said he was the first in his family. Did others become believers as well?
They did. Most of his siblings soon after came to know the Lord. His dad also died when he was 14. And so I think for him, coming to know Christ, it was a big deal understanding that he could have a father in heaven because he didn't have one on earth. And then my mom didn't come to know the Lord until after they were dating. My parents were dating. But yeah, I was raised in a very strong, believing home, and I wouldn't say like it was a home that we like went to church every Sunday. We were a part of a lot of different home churches with a lot of different groups throughout my life, and it would ebb and flow depending on if it was a home church or we were going to a church for a short amount of time. But both of them were just very steady and strong believers, and they've definitely impacted my walk a lot. And then being number 7, I have a lot of older siblings, and they have as well. My oldest sister has just, I think she got saved when she was 4 and has just like steadily walked with the Lord and been faithful to him. And that has impacted my life. It was hard for me when I was in my early teens because I didn't know the Lord very well. And so having a lot of older siblings telling me what was right was difficult at times. But when I was about 17, I really came to understand just what a blessing it was to have those people in my life directing me. And so, yeah, all of my siblings are believers except for my 2 oldest brothers.
Okay. So. Well, how did you come to know Christ? When did this happen?
Yeah, so I don't remember a time when I came to know Christ or when I gave my life to the Lord. I always thought I was a Christian, and I always believed in Jesus. And when I was younger, I think it was somewhat of like, this is what I'm doing now, and then I'll have to make the decision when I'm older. And that wasn't like out of fear or guilt or anything. It's just like I was obedient to my parents, and we're in a Christian home. And I think I had like a fear that I would decide to not follow the Lord when I was older. And so I think a lot of it was fear for me as a child that I didn't even know, and I feared eternity a lot. And so when I was about 16, I think it really impacted me that I fully started to understand that my 2 oldest brothers were not believers, and started to understand the weight of that. And they had claimed to be walking with the Lord for a long time, and so when they finally kind of just turned away from him, it impacted me a lot. And so I think that caused a lot of just like anxiety and fear in me, and also just a lot of sadness. And I think in that year of like 16, I dealt with a lot of anxiety, and I didn't exactly know where it was coming from, but I think that just the realities of life were starting to hit me after being raised in such a sheltered home, and such a protected home, which I'm so grateful for. Sure. But that's when, friendships maybe started to not work out, or relationships that I had weren't what I thought they were. To when I was younger, it was just, easy to have friends. But when I was 16, it started to become just a reality that, real life was hitting. And that caused a lot of anxiety. And we didn't talk about like anxiety or panic attacks a lot growing up. And not that we should have, but I didn't really know what it was when I think started having a few panic attacks just over having hardships and friendships and relationships with my siblings. And so I started feeling very lonely. But at this time, I had also started to really desire to know the Lord and read my Bible. And I had this like hunger to just go to Bible studies and know him. And so my sister would drive me to Bible study every week. And it was just kind of interesting to me in a way. And like there was a desire there that I had never really had. And so I asked my dad if I could get baptized, and so I got baptized when I was 16. And right after that, it actually got pretty hard, just in the sense of like I thought maybe that like being baptized, I was like, okay, I'm going to proclaim to everybody that I'm a Christian and that I want to follow the Lord. And then my life didn't exactly just like get fixed from that. And so a couple months later, I knew my oldest brother wasn't a Christian, but it just came out that he was living a double life, and that really broke me and impacted me a lot. And so I was 16, and so I wasn't allowed to talk to him. And not that I didn't really want to talk to him or have a strong relationship with him at the time, but it just really broke me. I didn't really know what to do with like my sadness and my anger and my loneliness. And my mom really recognized that in me of, I was very social, so I would go out and hang out with my friends and my siblings and then come home and just cry to her because I was so lonely. And she would just remind me over and over that Jesus was the only friend that I needed. And she would just tell me that over and over. And so I think I really was just impacted by that. And hearing that in my ear started to affect my heart and my mind. And so then that spring would have been when COVID hit. And I was almost 17. And COVID was actually such a relief for me in a way. And we were already homeschooled, so it wasn't like our lives changed a ton. And we lived in a small southern town, so like even if there were lockdowns, most of the time people didn't follow them anyway. Right. And so it didn't change a lot. But I just, in a way, like still being homeschooled, we were still around a lot of friends, and I just needed a break. And I felt like the Lord gave me that through COVID in a way of just being at home and being able to be outside and be by myself and read my Bible and listen to sermons and just like learn about the Lord in a way that I never had before. And then around that time, another one of my older brothers who was proclaiming to be a Christian, he also confessed to a lot of sin that was happening in his life. And to me, he had always been kind of like the strong brother in a way, or not like the strong brother, but I have 3 older brothers, and he was the only one that was a believer. And it just really impacted me because I realized that, he wasn't exactly who I thought he was, but at the same time, he was confessing all this stuff and he was repenting of all of it. And I saw him like right away just be broken before the Lord in a way that I had never seen him be before. And it was like when you think somebody is good and walking with the Lord, and all of a sudden they change and you realize like, oh, they're just a new person. Like this is totally different. This is a whole new side of like believing in Christ that I have never really witnessed before.
Wow.
And so that really impacted me, and he started explaining the gospel to me just in a way that I had never understood the gospel before. And we would sit at our dining room table, or that summer when we were remodeling our house, he would just talk about Jesus all the time and talk about like his sin just openly and his failures, and talk about why we needed the gospel. And I remember one day we were sitting at a table together, and I had my Bible open and he had his Bible open, and I didn't know much about studying the Bible, I had heard Bible stories my whole life, but as far as like understanding how the Old Testament was a picture of the New,
Yeah.
And he was flipping through different passages, Isaiah to Matthew, and showing me all this different stuff. And then he was talking about Jesus on the cross, and he just looked at me and was like, Savanna, the reason that Jesus suffered on the cross was not because of the nails in his hands and his feet, but was because he carried the wrath of God on your behalf. And of course, I think that was something I'd probably heard before, but had never really been impacted by. And the Lord just hit me with it then. And
I think that's not uncommon.
Yeah.
Like we hear a lot of things growing up. But it's not until it becomes applicable to us. The Lord's faithful to put us in a place where we actually hear what's being said or what has been said.
Yeah, so I think that was, through that whole year of just hearing the gospel in a way that I had never heard it or understood it before, really is what brought me to the Lord. Yeah.
That's great. So now, you say there's 12 siblings altogether, and this brother was one of the oldest.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the age difference between the oldest and youngest?
People ask me this a lot, and I can
I'm
never
sure
remember.
they do.
Yeah. I think it's about 19 or 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 19 or 20 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you probably remember a time early on when not everybody was in the house.
Yes, like before everyone was born, or when people had started to move out.
Yeah, like it probably happened pretty young for you.
Yeah. I think it was in my early teens when my oldest brother moved out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many of these siblings, how many of them, I mean, that's a community, that's
Yeah.
a lot of people. And I think it's a great thing. How are you able to get close to all of your siblings, or is it a few that you're really close with, or how does that work?
Yeah. So it's actually such a big blessing. I think it's definitely changed throughout the years, but all of my sisters, I would say I'm actually very close with.
Mm-hmm.
My youngest sister is Down syndrome and autistic,
Okay.
and so she's the favorite. And so obviously close with her in a different way. She's 13, but she's, about 4 really
Okay.
mentally. But even my second youngest sister is 15, and I'd say she's still one of my closest friends.
Okay.
And so it's hard to talk to them all, especially when you don't live with them
Yeah.
all
That's
the time.
a lot of people to keep up with. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there's a special bond among all of you.
Yeah. So I'd say growing up, me and the sister right below me, Rosie, we were the closest, and we did everything together. And then I think as we've all gotten older, age just, doesn't matter as much. And my oldest sister is 7 years older than me, and we're still very close now. And then obviously with brothers, it's just different. I have 5 brothers, and with my brothers who are Christians, my brothers who aren't Christians, there's just a different relationship.
Yeah.
But I would still say they know me very well, and I know them very well. And maybe we don't talk all the time, but I think there's just something that's very sweet to just knowing one another very well.
I could see that. So when one of your older brothers is spending time with you at the table, and then you said a year of just hearing him talk like this, is this something that he has continued to walk with you in, to encourage you toward?
Yeah, he has. It changed about a year or 2 years after that. He got married, and so our relationship obviously changed where he wasn't living in the house anymore. But I would say he's still someone who I just respect so much in the way that he preaches the gospel. I think he's so good at just coming back to that simple truth of he's grown so much, and I see him growing as a husband and a dad. Just in his life, but at the same time, he just never leaves behind just the simple truth of the Lord deserves your life because he gave his life, and constantly just reminding us of that. And so, yeah, that's been really sweet and really cool to see, and I would say he's definitely someone that I've gone back to, or I will go back to, and I often go back to for just to talk to about the Lord or to get advice from. So that's been really cool.
That's great. So after this time, now you were a teenager at this time when you're coming around to understanding these things.
Yeah.
Were you still in high school?
Yes, I was.
So how was life for you? You talked about anxiety before. How was life for you after coming to realize, just really the fullness, the truth of the gospel, that this is about Jesus?
Yeah. It's really interesting. I think that it took some time to fully understand what it meant, or I guess it took time for me to grasp or understand that he would heal me and he was going to heal me. But I think that he did that work in me right away. I started to realize that I didn't have anxiety in the same way, and I knew who to turn to. When I dealt with loneliness or anxiety, then I knew the truth, and I think that was a big thing for me at the time, is understanding the truth and not giving into the lies that I had believed before. And so it maybe took me a while to put words to that, but I would say it affected me right away throughout the next few years.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. You said that anxiety I think you said something like didn't affect you in the same way. So if I understand you right, it's not like you're saying, well, the Lord just took anxiety away, but it doesn't affect me like it did. Is that correct?
Yeah, like it was started just to realize that like this isn't just okay. This isn't something that I just have to live with and deal with for the rest of my life. This isn't just like, well, I'm a Christian and then also I just am crippled by anxiety, but rather the fact that like, why do I have anxiety? Is it because I am not obeying the Lord? Is it because I'm not listening to him? Am I not understanding or believing that he's going to take care of me or believing what he said in his word? And so I think it just became somewhat of a battle instead of just like something that was affecting me all the time. Like I knew how to fight it better.
Okay. All right. So the attack still comes, but not without the enabling to deal with it.
Right. Yeah. And I would say I don't deal with anxiety now in that way. Okay. I think that at times I can start to feel very stressed, or I can start to feel there have been more times since I was 16 that I've almost been more worried about being depressed more than being anxious. Okay. But I would say that it was only a short amount of time that I dealt with that anxiety, but it was more of I think there's the deep feelings of depression or sadness or loneliness that I've had to fight more and more frequently. And that also just is a reminder, okay, like what is the truth in this? And like this isn't just true about me, that I'm just a depressed person. It's just like a momentary thing that like I have to lay down to the Lord again.
I appreciate that because, so often the misunderstanding for believers is that there's some kind of utopia for us to know in this life. And if I'm not living perfect, if I am not living without struggle, then I'm not trusting the Lord. Maybe I'm not a Christian. And, those things, that's not true. That I think of Paul praying that the thorn in the flesh would be removed 3 times and realizing that this was exactly what the Lord was using in his life. And so the same is true for us as well, to know that we live in a fallen world. We deal with our flesh. Paul said, I do the very things I don't want to do, and I don't do the things that I do want to do. And then he goes on to say that his rescue is Christ. And so that's where we need to be, that we need to understand that, these are real battles. These are things that I deal with. The Lord knows I'm dealing with them. He's sovereign. But I can trust the Lord. I can trust Jesus with this. I can trust Jesus with my uncertainty, with my fear, with my hurt. I can trust him and continue to function and to let him do what he's going to do with these things. And I think often we find that it's those very struggles that the Lord uses to actually grow us in security and we find that there is a rest for us. There is a joy for us in the midst of these things. Would you say that's true for you?
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. And going back to my brother who explained the gospel to me, I know that something he constantly just preaches about is just knowing the character of God and trusting the character of God. And he's always talking about Abraham sacrificing Isaac and just that he trusted the character of God more than anything. And instead of, I think, me focusing on, okay, well, if I'm feeling depressed or I'm feeling sad, maybe I'm not a Christian or maybe I'm messing up. But it really has nothing to do with, how I'm doing and whether or not I'm a Christian, but more on like who God is and who he says he is and who I am to him instead of how I'm feeling in the moment or, what I'm dealing with.
That's great. So after high school, what did you do?
Yeah, so my 2 older sisters were coming to Bible school here. I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do, and I was going to work at this Christian camp. So I did that for a summer, and during that time, or before that actually, I had come and done a taste and see here at the Hill in April of 2022. And so I really just did a taste and see. I'll just be honest so that I could visit them.
And taste and see for the listeners to understand, this is an opportunity for people to come on campus and experience what it's like, just have a taste of what it's like to be a student, where you're here for a day or two and you go through classes and everything with the students. So you came for that.
Yeah. So I came because I missed them and I wanted to visit them. And I was here during the week that Ron Lowry was teaching through Ephesians. And it just felt so refreshing to me. And I just absolutely loved it. And so I went back home and I told my dad that I was interested in coming, which I think he was expecting, even though I had said I wasn't going to. And so while I was working at a summer camp that summer, I applied for the winter semester. And so I then came in January of 2023.
Okay. What was your year like here?
It was really good. I was actually only here for one semester. I was just here from January, to August, because I stayed for summer camp. And so I feel like they are not one and the same, but it kind of felt like a whole year because I stayed for summer.
Sure.
And it was very, very sweet. I think I had, started loving reading my Bible and listening to sermons and learning about theology. But one thing that I had kind of, I think, given into was just being pretty legalistic about my view of Christianity, in the way of, it doesn't matter how God feels about me, or how I feel, or it doesn't matter how I feel about God. I'm just going to obey him, and he is worthy to be served because he's a holy God. And I mean, I loved theology, but I think it definitely had its place. And then when I came to Bible school, it's interesting because you think I would come and learn more about, my beliefs on theology and doctrine. And I think that everything was just shaken up a lot because there were so many different people coming from so many different backgrounds with different beliefs. And it's easy to say one thing, is ridiculous and one thing is right until you're talking to somebody and you're friends with them and they have a different belief than you do. Mm-hmm. And so it was just a really sweet time. I think very humbling, sitting through classes that on topics that I wasn't raised with, but also just really starting to be impacted by the fact that the Lord actually did care about my feelings and my heart. And Lizzie was my D group leader, and our D group was just so sweet in the way of we just talked about the way that the Lord cared for us and that he cared about our emotions and our heart. And yet she was so good about also responding to it with truth. Of this might be how you're feeling, and then this is the truth. And he doesn't not care about how you're feeling, but this is the truth, and this is what he's trying to convey to you. And so I think it was just a really good year of coming to understand, that the Lord cared about me and loved me. And it was crazy that I, was walking with him, but didn't really know that before.
Yeah, he's faithful, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we can look back and go, wow, he was always been faithful.
Yeah. And so it was just a really sweet year. A lot of relationships and friendships were formed that year that are still going very strong now and are very encouraging to me. And summer camp was amazing. I was a counselor that year and the following summer of 2024, and I absolutely loved it. It was so good.
How did you see the Lord use, work in your heart during summer camp?
I am a firm believer that you sometimes learn the most from teaching, and there was a lot I learned during Bible school, but when it came to, it was very intimidating to sit down and realize I have to teach this scripture or this chapter or this passage to these campers. And I can't get this wrong, I can't. And obviously there's so much grace there, but it was just intimidating to do that. And yet it really made me dive into what I believe. And, you better know what you believe. And at the same time, just relying on the Lord so much for his mercy and grace, because you're going to be exhausted and tired. And there are times when you just have no words anymore, and yet he just continued to be sufficient. And it's funny to look back on now on like the days that you're just so exhausted. And think about that now as summer camp is going on and watching the counselors, and there's just days that you're so exhausted and you're so tired. And then you get to the end of it and you think, I could do that again. Because it's just like so sweet. It's just the sweetest thing to watch campers ask about the Lord and come to know him, and sit with girls while they, pray to receive Christ. And I think during camp is when I, again, was brought back to the fact that, like, he is sufficient and he is our healer. And I had campers who dealt with anxiety and depression, and they were very young. And it kind of brought me back to maybe things I had dealt with. And they thought that it was just things they were going to deal with for the rest of their life. And that, maybe this will, go away. Or, like, not even go away. Like, they just thought, I'll just deal with this for the rest of my life. But, I'll, like, also pray to receive Christ. And just, like, walking them through the fact of, hey, like, Jesus can take this from you. Like, he's sufficient. He can help you with this. And I think when you're telling that to a young girl, you have to truly believe it yourself of, like, do I believe that he's going to care for me if I'm telling this 11-year-old girl that he's going to care for her?
That's great. And the Lord, I mean, he does pursue us, and what he begins in us, he tells us in Scripture, what he begins in us, he's faithful to complete in us. And so he is active, and he does care. He is mindful of what's going on. And I think that's a great thing for us to encourage each other with. You're not alone. He never leaves. He never forsakes. When you've placed your faith in him, you belong to him, and he cares for you. So I appreciate that. Okay, so after Bible school and before coming on staff, what did you do?
Yeah, so when I first went home in August after my first summer of camp, I worked at home for a year. I homeschooled my youngest sister, Julia. Like I said, she's Down syndrome and special needs, and so she needs a lot of one-on-one care. And so I did that for a year. Was
that stressful for you?
It is in a sense. I am definitely not the sister she connects with the best, and so I think it was very stretching for me.
Okay.
And at the same time, I really did love it. And then at the same time, it was also very hard to work at home and be focused on work when you're at home. Yeah. So I did that for a year, and then I came back for summer camp in 2024. And while I was here, I broke my foot.
I remember that.
Yeah. And then there were 3 weeks of camp left. And so I was able to finish camp here. And then when I went back home, I was trying to make plans of what I was going to do. And then when I broke my foot, I realized, like, well, I can't really just, like, apply for any job. I'll be in a boot for about 6 weeks after I get home. And so I called my dad's salesman, and I asked him if he had any work for me. And so from September to, like, January, I just did sales calls, like cold calls, for my dad's company.
Wow.
And it was good when, I couldn't walk very much, and I needed to rest. And at the same time, it was still very hard. I am not a person who likes sitting at a desk. And my dad knew that. He didn't want me to stay in that position. And there were just different opportunities that I was trying to figure out if I was going to take them. And from before I ever went to Bible school up until that point, I had done abortion clinic ministry and been pretty involved in that. And so it was something that had been on my heart. And my dad got a call from his friend who had just taken over as manager at a crisis pregnancy center, and asked if my dad knew anybody that could fill this position he was trying to fill. And so I was about to leave the state for like 3 to 4 weeks, but he called me and asked if I would come in for an interview. So I went in for an interview, and the position was basically like half marketing, for like it was like a crisis pregnancy center as well as like a family resource center. So like a lot of classes going on as well as along with like the clinic side. And so I did marketing as well as like the nurse's assistant, basically, scheduling appointments. And most moms were just coming in because it's a free ultrasound. And then there were I don't know, maybe 10, 20% of moms who were considering abortion as well. And so I did that. I started end of February, and I did like it, but it was another desk job. But I was very passionate about the mission of it. And so I was convinced that I would at least stay for a year. And I kept telling myself, like, Savanna, you're going to commit to this. You're going to stay for a year and then revisit it. And a year really isn't that long. And I was fully on board to do that. And so I started doing that job. And then in the summer, I found out about this bill that they were going to try to, like, put into our Constitution in Missouri that was, like, a lot of the pro-life movement was supporting, but I disagreed with just because of, like, different fallacies or, I don't know, they were just, like, pretty weak in some areas.
Okay.
And I just felt pretty convicted about that, and was talking to my pastor about it and my dad about it, and nobody was telling me, like, Savanna, yeah, you cannot support that at all. If anything, my pastor was actually like, it might be good for you to be at the center and continue doing that work, and then maybe try to, like, influence them, like, be a good influence there. Yeah. And so I was just praying about it, and I had come to a point in end of July or beginning of August where I felt like, okay, I think I can stay. Like, I think I can stay, and I really don't want to leave. I really love the team. I really love the people, and I had prayed for just like a mentor, like somebody who really prayed for me and listened to me and was just willing to talk about things with me, and the nurse that I was working with had really become that for me. And so it was just a really sweet time, and so I had come to a point to where, like, logically, I thought, okay, I can stay, like, I can do this. And then I just felt, like, so convicted, like, in a way that I never had before, that I was supposed to leave. Okay. And I didn't fully understand why, and I just kept praying about it and asking the Lord why, because to me it was a really good job and it was a really good thing that was happening at the center. But he just kept pointing out, like, no, you're supposed to leave. And it was just, like, I can't even fully explain it. I just, like, knew. And anytime that I started to go the other way of, like, okay, well, maybe we can make this work, it was just, like, so much conviction of, no, you're supposed to leave. And I feel like that summer the Lord was really pointing out, like, a lot of fear of man that I had and having hard conversations. And so that was, like, the last thing I wanted to do was go to my boss and go to all the women I was working with and tell them that I was going to leave, and I knew I needed to tell them why I was going to leave. Mm-hmm. And so, and I had nothing else lined up, so I didn't know what I was going to do. And so in September, I went to my boss and told him that I was going to step down, but I would stay until the end of October to help get through this big event we were planning. And around the end of that, and I just kept, the days kept passing, and I still didn't know what I was going to do. And so I thought maybe I would just go get a job somewhere to, at a store or something to hold me over until I found out what I was going to do next. And then I found out that Rachel was stepping down because she was having a baby. And her younger brother is married to my younger sister. And so I kind of found out through that, and people started mentioning it to me. And so that's when I reached out about the job here with housekeeping. Okay.
So that's interesting. In all of that, you continue to see that the Lord cares. Mm-hmm. He's working in your heart, and He's giving you what you need, to talk to people, about some difficult things, and mm-hmm. and giving you what you need to obey Him too, mm-hmm. to step down. That's an encouragement and people need to hear that. That we can so often, we like to, what's the word I'm thinking of? Detach. We can detach ourselves from the life of Christ. In that, we think of the life of Christ involving my Bible study time, my Bible school time, my church time, but not my work. And of course a lot of Christians will say, oh, no. But how we function says otherwise. It would be a lot more comfortable to be able to avoid these conversations. It would be a lot easier to just stay in the job, but the Lord's working something else in your heart. And you can trust him for that. And in that he's showing you he cares. And he gives you the enabling to make those decisions and to have those conversations. And then you see his timing and things too, is that when that job ends, he's got something else for you. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing that I have just seen the Lord bring back into my life over and over, I think from the moment when I was 16 and first understanding the gospel until now, is John 6:68, where, Jesus asks the disciples, are you going to leave me as well after the thousands leave? And they say, we have nowhere else to go. You are the one that holds the words of eternal life, and we have come to know that you are the Son of God. And at one point in my life, and it's another just example of the Lord's faithfulness and bringing this and showing me how this verse applies to my life in different ways, is, when I first read this, it was like, well, I have nowhere else to go. I don't really have any friends, the life I had before was just very lonely and dark and broken, and so I have nowhere else to go. And then recently, in the last couple of years, I've started to realize that, I have nowhere else that I want to go. And through, like you were saying, it's not just certain areas like going to church or reading your Bible that belong to Christ, but if he isn't a part of every, area of my life, if every area of my life is not surrendered to him, then, it's just not worth it. I can't have Christ halfway.
That's right. Well, amen. That's great. Savanna, I think we'll let that be the closing because that was really well said. I appreciate it. Thanks again for doing this.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
We are in our third week of camp, and the time we've had with the kids so far has been excellent. Please keep praying for us here on the hilltop, campers and staff, that we would all press on to know the Lord. Thanks again for listening to the His Hill podcast today, featuring our host, Kelly Doherty, and our new housekeeper, Savanna Cooper. God is good, and he is good at being God. Continue to entrust him with the mysteries of life, and remember to keep your eyes fixed on Christ. I'm Lizzie, and we'll see you next week.